My husband wanted there to be a third person in our relationship. He would say that he wanted us all to enjoy being together. At first, I firmly refused, but after becoming tired of his constant insistence, I agreed. One day, my husband invited one of his friends to our home. On the first night, he was very nervous and I was extremely shy as well. But after that, he started to get used to it and I began to feel comfortable around my husband's friend. That night, the three of us spent time together. The soft morning sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, but my heart felt heavy and dark. I stood by the stove, eager to make breakfast and brew a fresh pot of coffee for my husband. With all the love in my heart, every day we only hope and prayer was that he would leave the house happy and return in the evening feeling at ease. But it seemed fate had written a different script for me that morning. Suddenly the kitchen door swung open violently. My husband, Mark, walked in, beside himself with his rage. His face was tense, his brow furrowed, and a deep scowl, a clear sign that the peaceful atmosphere of our home was about to be shattered. He grabbed a throw pillow off the armchair, hurled it across the room in frustration, and shouted, I have had it. I'm completely sick and tired of you suffocating me with your constant checking and these ridiculous restrictions. I carefully set his coffee mug down on the counter, my hands trembling as I spoke in quiet, pleading voice. Mark, I'm just worried about you. I care about you and I asked was when you would be home because this house feels empty and lifeless without you. My words only poured gasoline on the fire. He closed the distance between us rapidly, his tone sharp and cruel. I'm not a child and I don't need to hand you an itinerary or account for every single breath I take. Listen to me very carefully. I'm leaving and I won't be back for a few days. Maybe while I'm gone, you'll finally realize your place and figure out what you're actually worth. I need some peace and quiet. He turned on his heel, slammed the front door behind him, and it drove off. I couldn't move a muscle to stop him. It felt as if the life had been drained right out of my body. I collapsed on the kitchen door, sobbing uncontrollably. My two young, innocent children ran into the room, terrified by the commotion, and began crying alongside me. I gathered my strength, pulled them tightly against my chest, and tried my best to soothe them. Even as a storm raged inside my soul, the next 3 days were the hardest days of my life. Every few minutes, I would walk over to the front window, staring down the driveway in hopes of seeing his car turn into the land. Every time I was met with empty disappointment. When the neighbors stopped by to ask how things were going, I forced a tight smile and lied, saying he had gone out of town for an urgent work project. But behind every fake smile, I was choking back tears. On the fourth day, just around dusk, there was a knock at the door. My heart hammered against my ribs. I ran to the door and pulled it open. Mark was standing on the porch, but his expression was even colder, harder, and more distant than when he had left. He walked past without making eye contact with me, sat down on the sofa, and said bluntly, tomorrow, get yourself ready. We are going over to a friend's house. I looked at him in disbelief. You just came back after being gone for days without a word, and now you want us to go out immediately? I don't feel comfortable going to a stranger's house, especially someone I don't even know. Before I could finish my sentence, Mark stood up, his face darkening. I said, we are going, so we are going. If you try to argue or defy me on this, remember that you won't have a place or any value in his home after today. I went completely silent. I glanced over at my children, knowing full well that if I resisted, the fallout wouldn't just hurt me, it would devastate them too. Crushed under the weight of his threat, I bowed my head in silence, but a quiet voice deep inside me kept whispering that going on this trip would be the biggest mistake of my life. All through the night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep a wink. Questions raced through my mind. Who is this friend? Why is Mark so determined to make me there? My chest was filled with dread and a strange, unnameable anxiety. The next morning, I made one final attempt to soften his heart. I prepared his favorite breakfast, laid it on to the dining table and softly said, Mark, every married couple has arguments and rough patches, but living like this and hardening our hearts toward each other isn't the answer. Go to work today and we can plan to visit your friends another time. He didn't even bother looking at the breakfast table. Whether I go to work or not is my business, he said, his tone dry and icy. As for going to my friend's place, get ready. I don't want to hear another word about it. His tone left me no choice. I put on a simple, modest dress, gathered my purse, and walked out with him. Before leaving, I kissed my sleeping children on their forehead, quietly praying that God would keep them safe. During the entire drive, Mark didn't say a single word. As the car left a township behind, he navigated onto a desolated, winding back road where the houses were spaced far apart and surrounded by dense trees. The area felt airy and isolated. Finally, the car pulled up in front of a small, worn down house. Mark got out and knocked on the front door. A moment later, a man opened it. When he saw Mark, he grinned and greeted him warmly. But the instant his eyes settled on me, an overwhelming feeling of disgust and anxiety swept over me. The way he looked at me made my stomach drop and my heart pound with fear. We step inside the living room and adjoining spaces were cluttered with men's clothing and personal items. There was no trace that a woman had ever lived there. Suddenly, Mark said, I'm going to step outside to take a phone call. Stay here for a second. I'll be right back. Panic seized me. I reached out and grabbed his arm to stop him, and he pulled away forcefully and walked out, shutting the door behind him. I was left all alone in the house with this stranger. The man walked over, handed me a glass of water, and offered a slick smile. Welcome. Good to have you here, ma'am. Hope you're doing well. I gave a faint, reluctant nod. He tried to strike up a conversation. Mark isn't just a friend to me, you know. We are like brothers. Closer than brothers, actually. I remained completely silent. An uncomfortable stillness hung in the air, and I could feel his gaze lingering on my face in a way that felt entirely predatory. I mustered the courage to ask, is there anyone else living here? He chuckled softly. Nope, just me. I live here alone. Hearing that made my blood run cold. I had held onto a thread of hope that there might be a woman in the house I could sit with, but the reality was terrifying. I stood up to walk outside toward the car, but he gestured me to stay. Take it easy. Sit down. Mike will be back in just a minute. I sat back down, but every passing second felt like torture. I could feel in my bones that I had walked straight into a trap. A few minutes later, Mark came back inside. Seeing him gave me a brief moment of relief. Though I was still deeply shaken, the two of them sat across the room talking in low, hushed whispers while I sat in absolute silence. Eventually, we left and drove. During the entire drive back, I didn't say a word, but a million questions were screaming inside my head. Why did Mark leave me alone with that stranger? What were the whispering about all that time? Was this just a strange coincidence, or was it as a calculated plot against my life? When we got back home, a deep, heavy dread settled over me. I locked my bedroom door, sat on the edge of the bed, and wept for a long time. I couldn't understand what Mike wanted from me. His behavior had changed so drastically that my own home felt entirely alien to me. Late that night, I overheard him talking on the phone in a low, muffled voice in the hallway. Just give me a little more time, he was saying. She will give in and agree. Those words hit my heart like a thunderbolt. My knees buckled beneath me and I had to lean against the wall for support. It was confirmed a dangerous, sinister plot was being woven against me. My immediate instinct was to confront him, to demand to know what mistake I had made to deserve such cruelty. But I checked myself and stayed silent. My parents had passed away years ago, and my only brother was living abroad, busy with his own family. I didn't want him to become a burden on him. My two children were my entire world. The next morning, I cooked breakfast as usual as Mark sat down to eat. I asked him in a quiet, major tone, are you not going to work again today? It's been an entire week since you stepped foot in the restaurant you manage. How are we going to cover our household bills and living expenses? He didn't even bother looking up from his plate. I don't need to go back to that job. There are a million ways to make money. I was stunned. What kind of ways? The moment I asked, he flew into a rage, slamming his hand on the table. None of your damn business. Your job is to run the house and look after the kids. Don't pry into my affairs. I lapsed into silence, but the fear in my heart only grew. His hostile tone and suspicious behavior made it painfully clear that something illegal and dangerous was happening. Weeks passed, turning into a full month. He never returned to his job at the restaurant. Yet, mysteriously, the household expenses were being met effortlessly. He would bring home expensive groceries and I occasionally catch glimpse of thick stack of cash in his jacket pocket. But he never offered an explanation for where the money was coming from. One afternoon I was out on the back porch chopping vegetables while Mark sat in a patio chair smoking a cigarette. After the long silence I found the nerve to speak up. If you are not working, where is all this money coming from? Did you start in a new business? He bolted upright, his face flushed with anger. Why do you care so much about where the money comes from? I'm bringing it home or not I? That's all that should matter to you. Stop digging into my business. I lower my head, my hands shaking. Deep down, I know with complete certainty that this money wasn't clean or honest from that day on. I began watching his every move. Every afternoon, he would step outside to take quiet phone calls. Then one afternoon, while walking down the hall to fetch a glass of water, I caught his slow voice through his bedroom door. Yeah, she's almost ready. I have broken her spirit, just a little more resistance left, and then she'll go along with it. My feet felt glued to the floorboards. Only one question echoed in my mind. Who is he talking about? Within seconds, the horrifying reality dawned on me. He was talking about me. A cold chill through my bones. My own husband, the man I had built a life with, was planning to sell me out for money. I retreated to my room and wept bitterly. Memories of my late parents flooded my mind. If they were still alive, I wouldn't be suffering through this nightmare. A few days later, in the late afternoon, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find the very same man, the friend Mark had taken me to see, standing on a front porch. The ground seemed to tilt beneath my feet. He offered a sinister, confident smile. Mike woke up behind me and said with complete coldness, Go make some coffee. Then come sit out on the porch. We have important business to discuss. I went to the kitchen in silence, my hands trembling as I prepared the coffee. Tears streaming down my face uninterrupted. Every single tear felt like a testament to my utter helplessness. When I brought the tray into the living room, I saw that two of them sitting at the dining table, signing a stack of legal documents. The moment they saw me enter, they abruptly stopped talking and went quiet. I set the tray down and walked out to the back porch. I looked up at the evening sky as the sun was setting, bringing on the dark. It felt as though the light in my own life was extinguished right along with it. A short while later, the man walked out the front door. Mike escorted him to his car. As they said goodbye, I saw them exchange silly smile and handshake, like two businessmen who had just finalized a lucrative deal. Mark walked back inside, a look of strange relief and satisfaction on his face. He looked the front door, turned to me, and said, See that? Because of one man, look at the financial security we have now. I don't have to slave away at a daily job anymore. I gather my courage and ask, What kind of work is this? Why is this man giving you so much money? He let out a cold laugh. Nobody does anything for free in this world. All relationships are about mutual benefit. Give and take. His word make my heart sink. I laid awake all night, unable to sleep, knowing for certain that Mark had entangled himself in something deeply corrupt. That night, I quietly pulled out a suitcase, intending to pack up my children's clothes and flee the house forever. But as I searched the closet, my hands come across the original deed to our property. I opened the document and read it carefully. The house was legally registered in my name alone. I paused. If I ran away, I thought he will take our house, sell it, or bring another woman into this same nightmare. I put the suitcase back in the closet and made my final decision. I would not run, I would stay and fight back. The next morning, I looked at Mark from across the room as he lay asleep, completely unbothered. I prayed quietly in my heart, Lord, give me the strength and courage to protect my honor and my children and my rights. I know the coming days would be the hardest test of my life, but I was resolved not to stay silent any longer. Over the next 2 weeks, that man whose name was Jared began showing up at our house almost daily. Every time he arrived, Mark would make an excuse to leave the house, leaving me alone with him. Each time I was overwhelmed by fear, vulnerability, and degradation, but I endured it for the sake of my children. Trying to keep Jared at arm's length, then came the day when things reached an intolerable line. Despite all my resistance and attempt to defend myself, Jared crossed every boundary, stripping away my dignity. Neither my cries, my tears, nor my pleas could soften his heart. On that horrific day, it wasn't just my dignity that was shattered. The last moment of hope and trust I held for my husband died forever. What burned my soul most of all was knowing that this had happened with Mark's full knowledge and consent, driven entirely by his greed for money. He no longer viewed me as a human being or his wife. I was merely a commodity to be traded for his financial gain. After that day, my life descended into deep darkness. I felt broken in every sense, but I forced myself to gather whatever strength I had left to survive for my children. That very night, I made a solemn vow to myself. The day would come when I would stand up to this injustice. I knew that silence would only empower the abuser, so I began waiting for the right moment to claim my right through legal means and secure a fair future for my children. After Jared left that evening, an unsettling silence hung over the house. I locked myself in my bedroom, held my children close, and cried for hours. It felt as if every pillar of support I had in this world had been stripped away. When Mark returned home late that night, there was no shame, remorse, or regret on his face. He sat down casually, acting as though nothing had happened. His cold indifference hurt more than any words he could have spoken. I pulled myself together, stood before him, and asked, "Why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to deserve this?" He looked at me with an icy glare. "What's done is done. Forget about it. If you want to live comfortably in this house, learn to obey me and do as you are told." His words shattered whatever small piece of my heart remained intact. It confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt that my life, my dignity, and my well being meant absolutely nothing to them. For the next few days, I lived in a state of intense psychological distress. I forced myself to appear composed in front of my children, but whenever I was alone, I would break down in tears. I know that if I stayed silent, this nightmare would never end. A few days later, Jared came to the house again. Mike made his usual excuse to step out this time. I stood my ground, stooped right there. I said, my voice ringing out firm and clear. "I'm not staying silent today." Both of them froze. Caught off guard, I looked at them both and said without fear, "Everything that happened before was not with my consent. You trapped me using threats and fear, but this cruel game ends today." For the first time, Jared's expression turned serious. I turned to Jared and exposed Mark completely, revealing how Mark had been threatening to take away my children away from me to keep me terrified and compliant. As I spoke, the color drained from Mark's face. I looked at both of them and declared, "Remember, this injustice doesn't feel last forever. The law will take its course and God will see that justice is served." On that day, I made my final choice. I would no longer live in fear, nor would I live my children's future at the mercy of these men. I was going to use the law to put an end to this nightmare permanently. In the days that followed, I carefully planned my move. I knew that acting impulsively could put my children at risk, so I waited for the right moment. Over the next week, I quietly began gathering evidence. I recorded Mark's phone conversation, secured financial documents, gathered bank receipts, and secured the deed to the house. I made sure I had considerate proof of his action, not just my word. One evening at dusk, while Mark was out on the porch discussing another scheme with Jared, I gathered all the crucial document pack in a bag for my children and quietly slipped out the back door without making a sound. We went straight to the local police department. A female officer at duty sat down with me and listened patiently as I recounted the entire nightmare, the threats, the financial coercion, and the conspiracy Mark had orchestrated against me. When she saw the evidence I brought and realized the severity of the situation, she immediately initiated formal legal proceeding. That very night, police officers executed an arrest warrant and brought Mark into custody. Shortly after, Jared was brought in for questioning as well. During the court proceeding, all the documents, call recording, and evidence were presented before the judge. After thorough hearing, court ruled entirely in my favor. The judge granted me full legal protection and sole custody of my children, while Mark received a severe prison sentence for his crime. When I stepped out of the courthouse doors that afternoon, I felt the true taste of freedom for the very first time in my life. The road ahead wasn't easy, but it was free from fear and degradation. I got a job at a local school, earning an honest living to support and raise my children. Through my own hard work, I learned that staying silent against abuse only allows it to go, but taking a single step toward the truth can change the entire course of your life. Even now, memories of the past occasionally bring a sting of pain, but I am no longer a prisoner of to those moments. I have built a fresh life with my children, one filled with respect, peace, and hope. They are my greatest and most precious strength.